Hello and welcome to the North Coast Journal Preview. This is a show where we take a look at the current edition of the North Coast Journal. My name is Ruby Cayenne. We are joined, as usual, by North Coast Journal's Arts and Features editor, Jennifer Fumiko Cahill. Welcome.
Hello, and we have no Thad this week. I'm sorry.
That is true.
If it makes you feel any better, I can talk about all the news portion of the paper in my Thad voice, although Thad doesn't typically love that.
I think I would love that, so if you want to, go right ahead.
I also have a beard on hand.
Oh my goodness.
For later. But yeah, it's a big week. We've got a ton of big, complicated stories and a couple of fun ones in the paper, so it's a good one to pick up.
Yeah, it's looking full and vibrant and lots of information. So I'm ready to get straight to it if you are. Would you start by telling us what's on the cover this week of the North Coast Journal?
I will. So this week we have another story by Elaine Weinreb, who is a freelancer who is, I'm going to say, obsessed with energy. Not like Gwyneth Paltrow energy, but like actual like utilities energy. She's written for us about the defunct nuclear plant and where all those scary rods are. She's written about all kinds of different things regarding clean energy, regarding what's happening with, the various mills and other sites around town, and about how our energy grid works and all this stuff. It really is kind of her zone. So she is writing this week about the Harbor District's preparations for what looks like it may be a wind farm off of the waters of Humboldt County. Wow. So for people who have been talking about this and, obsessing along with Elaine about it, some of this will be repetitive, but there's a lot more detail in terms of what steps are being taken now. Again, it's still a slow process. This isn't the story about how giant windmills are going up tomorrow. That's just not the case. But it is kind of an interesting look at the engineering, among other things, and about how much control or how much input the local community has or doesn't have regarding the project. So it's interesting in that I think the cool thing, it's called Port of Entry. And when you open up to the first page of the story, there's a cool diagram of what the offshore wind farm looks like, or at least what it's, proposed to look like. And it's interesting too, because ours would be, if it happens, very different from other ones in the world. I was surprised to hear that apparently the deepest offshore wind farm is anchored off Norway, and it is at a depth of 721 feet, according to a CalMatter story. This is a lot. For those of you who recently spent all the time obsessing about the people in the submarine and how deep the ocean is weirdly deep there. That's what I got from one semester of oceanography. The ocean is weirdly, weirdly deep, and our waters are not going to be like Norway. Our waters require that the anchoring for a windmill go 2,500 feet. That's more. And it's crazy. So it means a different structure entirely. Instead of having a big tower whose feet are locked into the ocean floor, it means that these are going to float on pontoons. And so you're going to have a kind of I guess you could say like a raft. And then the raft is anchored to the bottom of the sea rather than like a tower that's straight in. And it looks like a crazy, crazy feat of engineering. And it's hard to kind of like fathom both the depth and the size of these things. And then also to consider that apparently, so we're told they will look like dots on the water from shore. However, they will not look like dots when they are being assembled. One of the reasons that Humboldt has been chosen as a proposed site is that not only is it, we have wind, we have a shore, et cetera, we have the kind of place where you can assemble these giant turbines and where you can move them into the harbor. You cannot send these things across country by trucks. Lord knows you can barely get appliances sent up here, but they have to be assembled in big empty areas close to the water. And apparently Humboldt County has that. The peninsula is kind of a perfect spot, I guess, or so that's what they say right now. And that means that these giant things that are going to have to come in on the water and come in through the bay are going to have to be assembled on shore and then, or at least partly assembled, and then put together on their little pontoon things, their huge, giant pontoon things. And there's also the concern about access to the harbor, right? So fishing vessels need to be able to come in and out. Is this going to disrupt their passage? Is this going to disrupt the industry? And so at a recent meeting, lots of people were expressing their concerns about how this is going to impact the area. Among them were some folks who were concerned about fishing, people who were concerned about the impact on local fish, on the impact of all kinds of flora and fauna here. It's one of those issues where you think, okay, so if we have, we need clean energy, so we just do this thing, but nothing is ever foolproof. Nothing is ever without problems, right? There are no perfect solutions. And so right now, the community is parsing both what the impacts of trying to put together a clean energy solution locally are going to be, and also how much input they can be. So there's a fella, Harbor District Executive Director, Larry Oker. His feeling is, he says at one point, people don't want a boom and bust industry. Because Humboldt knows about boom and bust for sure. Between lumber, cannabis, and I'm told a brief flirtation with shark liver sales, we've had a lot of boom and bust businesses. And the hope and the belief, according to Larry Oker, is that this will be a steady, sustainable industry that will keep going in terms of building and maintaining and whatnot. There were a lot of questions about how the energy is going to be moved from the wind turbines, how it's going to be distributed elsewhere. It's super complex. There's also a lot of questions about how the process is going, getting certain kinds of impact reports and things ready. Jen Savage, who's a frequent contributor to the journal, and also she lives out on the peninsula, and she does a lot of activism regarding the ocean. She works for Surfrider, among other activities she does. And she was talking about making sure that there's no harm done unnecessarily to the peninsula and the residents. And also she has, concerns about, the CEQA forms and the impact reports going through before they can start moving forward. And there's also a lot of concern about how much of a partnership, or not so much a partnership, but how much input, how much of a stakeholder's say local tribes are going to have. So it's still, this is still an ongoing thing. And again, this is not the story in which we say, so this is what's definitely going to happen. But I think it's a really important read as people keep discussing and hopefully attending these kinds of meetings and talking to, their elected officials and such. I think this is a really good one to read and feel, walk away from it with an informed, solid idea of what it will take and what impacts it could have and what we still need to answer. And then from there, you can go forward and like argue with your neighbor about whether or not we should have windmills offshore. And, you know, you want to know for sure how you feel before you fight with people you know.
Wow, that's such an incredible plethora of information that you just introduced about what's going on. And for those who don't have time to make it to those meetings and everything, articles like this are so essential. I personally cannot wait to sink my teeth into it to get a good update on kind of what the direction may be heading in. So that's really exciting.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. There are issues that are kind of a slog, and like I had to hit this one with a highlighter, and but it's gonna be it's a long-term impact, and so this is not like some tiny decision that you can just like opt out of. It is really something I think everybody living in Humboldt and depending on Humboldt Bay should really make themselves really familiar with.
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree with you. And Jennifer, do you have any final thoughts about this story that you wanted to add to that?
I mean, just that you can expect us to follow the story, and likely Elaine will be back. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how she tracks it. And she's in the loop with a lot of people who are she's been talking to all these people for a long time about this topic, and so she's a really solid resource in terms of parsing out all of the nitty gritty. So I appreciate that we have her and look forward to following it through her.
That's great. I'm excited to hear more from her. Thank you so much for that story, and I highly suggest that people pick up the journal and read the full story because there's so much in there, and it might be good to hit it with a highlighter too, take notes from her so that you get all those important bits. Well, okay, moving on to something a little bit more on the fun side. We have some information about the Malale Dunes.
Yes. So I know everybody is dune informed, all the Humboldt hiking community and everything. But Mark Larson took a wonderful set of photos worth checking out regarding the Malale Dunes North, which is the part that you have to go, like you pull into the Malale Dunes, like what do you call it? The parking areas, right? And you can go left and it'll go through like one area, and it's wildly different from if you go right. Mm-hmm. Because if you go right on the days when the gate is open, unless you're going to walk, and past the sounds of the shooting range and some other stuff, you end up in what I can only describe as really another planet. I was very excited for Mark's story about Malale Dunes North because it is one of the few places that I've been outside in this county. Yeah, I don't hike. I don't go outside. I have wonderful, lovely writers who go and do all that intrepid stuff, and then I edit what they come up with. But this is a place I've actually been, and it freaked me out the first time I went because I was like, okay, so we are on the planet of Tatooine at first because it's like this big sandy hills, and then all of a sudden you look down and it's green and lush and it looks like a crazy jungle, and then you're at the ocean and it's wild and it's constantly shifting, constantly changing. It is dreamlike. It's an incredible place. And Mark does a really great job of describing what kinds of flora and fauna you're going to see on a hike through. A good course to take, like a good trail to take through. Be aware that the steep climb up the sandy dune with the rope is actually as difficult as it looks. But it is really beautiful. And he's got these gorgeous pictures. Largely, if you look in the pictures, there's occasionally a woman in there, and that is his wife, Sydney, who is also lovely. And they take a zillion walks around Humboldt County. They spent the pandemic, I think, going on like, I want to say a couple walks a week. And they would go to all these different places. I think they've, like, name a trail, they've hit it. And they go and photograph flowers and birds and everything. And they're just, see, this is why I don't go outside. They're doing it for me.
Plenty.
But it is a really beautiful walk. And if you have been in the habit of going to the other end and going around the Malel Dunes there, definitely go back to the north again, because it's probably changed a little since you were there last. It's really interesting. So definitely check that out and go online to northcoastjournal.com to see the rest of the pictures, because they're really lovely.
Definitely. I'm excited. I definitely try to make it to both sides equally, but that gate gets in the way of that sometimes. So if you haven't been there, these photos will definitely give you more than a sneak peek into how amazing it is over there, and maybe even compel some people to get out and walk to it. Yeah.
Even me.
Very cool. Well, definitely, yeah, look at those photos and read that story. And moving on, we also have another fun story that has to do with carrots. Jen?
Yes. Simona Carini, our favorite Italian vegetable lover, is back to tell you to eat your vegetables. Simona, I swear to God, I get emails from her. She's like, listen, I'm going to send you my next story from Greenland or wherever. She's constantly traveling and doing wonderful. She's a big environmental activist, among other things. And so she does a lot of work around the world. And she also writes poetry. She's like, she takes gorgeous pictures of food and is just like making her own recipes. And yes, that's right. The rest of us are doing nothing. That's what it feels like. But she has this great recipe that she kind of reverse engineered from a trip to Turkey with her husband. And that lucky man, he's a genius. He married this woman. He eats like this every night. My God. Anyway, Simona, did I tell you she runs marathons also? I swear, I think she did a triathlon. So Simona, while in Turkey, had this wonderful kind of like meze platter of, like, you know, hummuses and dips and salads. And one of the little dishes was a carrot and yogurt salad, which I know children everywhere are going, bleh, but in fact, it's amazing. If you enjoy tzatziki, are you a tzatziki person?
I love.
Right? It's like the second best part of your gyro.
It's amazing.
So kind of like tzatziki in that it is a savory yogurt thing, but it has the sweetness of carrot. And for those of you who are sick of eating raw carrots, number one, put down the baby carrots for a second. You have eaten too many of those weird orange nubs. Allow yourself to eat a vegetable that, I don't know, looks like a vegetable. I get it. I also have fallen into the trap of the baby carrots, but it makes you hate carrots after a while. So instead, try Simona's recipe, and this involves sautéing the carrot. They're shredded really small and then sautéed so that they're soft and the sweetness comes out. Instead of feeling like you're gnawing lumber like a beaver, you're just enjoying the sweet flavor of carrot that just, when it's barely cooked, it really comes up and it's nutty and lovely like that. And then it's mixed with yogurt. You can choose non-fat, but whole fat yogurt. When's the last time you had some whole fat yogurt? So good. I finally came back from like a weird obsession with non-fat yogurt. And I was like, everyone, has anyone heard about whole fat yogurt? Do you guys know? Have you tried it? I became like an evangelist for for milk fat. But it's great. You have a little bit of garlic, like the tzatziki, and then the yogurt and the cooked carrot, and it becomes this like cool salad that isn't like leafy. Not everything has to be leafy. So it's a nice change, and it's a nice thing to cook real quickly and enjoy cold when it is, Humboldt hot outside.
That sounds so delicious. I cannot wait to try that. I love Middle Eastern food. I'm Middle Eastern myself, and
Oh, I didn't know that.
hits home. I'm Israeli on my dad's side. So yeah, I'm excited. And carrots too. There's so many things to do with every vegetable. I think people often get stuck into the one preparation, and it's great to branch out, try different cultures. And
Simona is also a cheerleader for, other kinds of carrots, like multicolored carrots, and also weird shaped vegetables. She enjoys it, and there is in the photo that she took, there is a classic carrot and a goofy looking little nub of a carrot. And she's always there, like rooting for the runt of the carrot litter. So bless her. And if you want to like be inspired to eat more vegetables, you should check out her Instagram, which we have the address for at the bottom of her story. She does vegetable still lives, like fruit and vegetable still life photography, and it's very fun and lovely, and will make you rearrange the onions on your counter. It's lovely.
I love that. Yeah, eat all the vegetables, no matter what they look like. Don't discriminate,
Right.
They all taste good. And if you're like me and there's not a single kind of food that you don't like or a single ingredient, then don't be shy to try new stuff,
I am excited to learn this about you, Ruby.
My little sister, bless her heart, she's 9. She calls me a trash can because I just eat everything, So
I love to hear it. I love to hear about people who are willing to try new things. And I am myself a bit of a trash can. My husband was thrilled the first time he saw me. There's a Japanese food that it's like one of very few Japanese foods that I can't eat. And it's a raw squid that's salted very heavily and preserved in its own guts. And it's sort of like purplish looking. And, every couple years I try it again to see if I can like it. But the first time he saw me like push it away, he was like, "Oh, thank God." He's like, "I thought you were faking liking everything all these years, but finally there's something you hate. But I will conquer you. Jokara, I will get you someday."
I love that. I love that you continue to try it. That's the determination I love to see. Awesome. Well, thank you for explaining that piece about carrots so wonderfully, and thank you to that writer, and I can't wait to try that recipe out. Sounds
it's very cool.
Really,
and I don't know how much time we have left, but I do want to make sure to point everybody to Thad's update on the Title IX situation at Cal Poly Humboldt. There has been a third-party assessment of the Title IX office, and it's not great, but it is really interesting to read about an outside party's view of the situation and how, a third party's assessment of how the university is addressing issues of Title IX equality and harassment and things like that. And anyway, it's a solid update, and I hope everybody will take time to read it, especially those of us who are, in some way, shape, or form living near the campus or, have friends, families, or they're themselves attending CPH. It's good to be updated on that and to really have a sense of a neutral assessment of the Title IX department.
Absolutely. This university is such a huge part of our community, as you mentioned, and they have a lot of sway over what goes on in the community and just in general, a lot of say. And like you said, people are really involved in lots of different ways. So definitely want to know what's going on with them. And this is an excellent way to keep updated on a really important facet of that bigger picture of what is Cal Poly Humboldt, the good and the bad. So I second that, to definitely pick that up and give it a read. Well, thank you so much for those stories, Jennifer, and for playing Thad as well.
Damn it, I forgot my beard.
Oh, yeah. Next time, if you can't
Next
make
time.
it, you gotta bust that out. That'd be great. Well, that is about all the time that we have for this week. The current edition of the North Coast Journal is on newsstands now, so go pick up a copy, please. And you can also find it 24/7 online at northcoastjournal.com. Jennifer, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ruby.